Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Mess. So, Tarek Entertaining Series is that an Analogue in your pocket. Are you just happy to see me? And it seems like Analogue is on a roll with firmware updates because OS 2.1 is here, bringing firmware updates to both your Analogue Pocket as well as the dock that are going to bring you a new controller as well as fix some issues with some of these screen filters. Because recently when I did the update videos, I told you some cores still seem to want to freeze when you would actually open up display options. So a lot of this is what's going to be going on here today. I'm going to show you guys what the new OS is, go over the notes, how to install it, and what it is bringing to the Pocket, because when we got screen filters, it was absolutely awesome. It was something that the Pocket desperately needed under OpenFPGA, and now that we already have those filters, this seems to be more of a clean up sort of OS, but it's still going to be super important to get the best performance out of your Pocket. Before you get too far involved, though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. Now, if you navigate over to Analogue's website and you go under the firmware, you're going to see OS 2.1 was released on January 17th. It is the 20th that I'm doing this, or maybe a little bit before. You're going to see that there are release notes as well as that download button. We'll go over all the release notes, talk about what has changed, so you're aware what's going to be different with your Pocket, and obviously you need to click the download button if you want to go ahead and do that. There is an updating firmware guide, but I'll go over this in the video as well. But as far as the update notes are concerned, there's some minor UI fixes under OS, and I honestly did not see anything different in my Pocket, so if they are there, they are definitely hiding. But the big things are going to be under OpenFPGA. Right now you're going to get a new option. You'll have integer, integer plus, and stretch CRT with size options. So that is a new addition to the screen filtration as far as the overall sizing on both your Pocket and your dock. They also fixed the settings not saving, and I did notice this in different cores. You would set a filter, you would go back in, it would not be there or would not adhere to the changes. So it seems like this is 100% been fixed, which is super important because you want to set something once and just keep that option unless you decide to turn it off. So the saving now seems to be working 100% of the time. I could not find any example in which it wasn't, and that's definitely something you guys left in comments. They definitely fixed the crashing on some cores when entering display mode, and I know from a lot of comments I got in previous videos, you guys were definitely encountering this as well, and it seemed like the #1 offender as far as the core was concerned with Sega Genesis. When I talked about the screen filters when they came out, and I talked about Streets of Rage 2, when I would go into display mode, the game would be running behind the actual menu, but I was never able to actually get any response once I hit A on display mode. So we're going to go over that in just a moment, and we'll show you all the tests and see what ends up happening. And there's one more line item in OpenFPGA that's fixed display mode bug where grayscale modes cause bad core communication. I do not have any idea what this means whatsoever. I've never seen any issues with that, so don't worry about it too much. And the developer and APF issues, those are more on the back end for developers, so you're not really going to need to know much about that. But as far as the dock is concerned, it fixed the pairing with 8-bit DOE N30 controller. I do not have one of those. I have the TurboGrafx equivalent, but I did hear from some of you that you had issues with this as well, and you asked me if I knew what was going on. It seems like it has now been fixed. And before anybody asks, unfortunately, DAC support is still not in the 2.1 OS update. Everyone is super waiting for this so they can use their Analogue Pocket on their CRT televisions and PVMs, but as of the making of this video, that has not been added yet, and I really do hope that that's going to be the next update. Now, as far as getting the firmware onto your Analogue Pocket, there's more than one way to do it. Don't worry about the saying 1_1. This is just from an older video. The procedure is the same. Whatever firmware you have on your micro SD card on the root, you go ahead and just delete that, and we're going to copy over the newest firmware. It's going to say 1.2 here, but I will show you 2.0 in just a second, but the procedure is exactly the same. Go to your downloads folder, copy that file, and then go ahead and paste it over into the root of your micro SD card. It is as simple as that, but you can use Pocket Updater as well, and that will also bring down the current firmware. So there's two different procedures on how to do this, and you'll see here with no firmware added whatsoever, I just dragged and dropped firmware 2_1.bin. That's what it should look like, and you should be 100% good to go. So from there, again, like I said, you can use Pocket Updater. There is more than one way to do this, and sometimes I recommend using Updater. That way you get all the newest cores and updates along with your firmware update, because you're going to see option 1 is update firmware. You should just hit option 0 every single time. It really doesn't take that long, and it's going to give you the most current files across the board for everything on your Analogue Pocket. As usual, go ahead and put the micro SD card back in your pocket and hold down the power button until you see this percentage mark. It took again about 3 minutes, and upgrading dock actually took more like 4.5 minutes this time. It was 4 minutes and 27 seconds on my end, so don't be surprised that all of this takes a while. Don't be worried, just make sure that that bar is still progressing and you are fine. And to confirm everything worked 100% of the way, go down to settings, go down to about, and you're going to be able to pick Analogue OS right here. If it says OS version 2.1, it has those same patch notes, you know you were on the current operating system as of Analogue's release schedule. Now, as far as the freezing in the display options menu, the number one core that I could get this to happen to every single time across both cores was the Sega Genesis. Anytime, especially in Streets of Rage, I would try to open up display modes, I would freeze the actual operating system. The game would still be running, but nothing would be responsive. Let me go ahead and pause, go to core settings and display modes, and now you can see in the first of 2 Genesis cores, I have full control of all the display modes. I was not able to freeze this whatsoever. I turned every single option on or off. I tried to get this thing to screw up, and I could not do it whatsoever. So whatever you turn on, at least in this instance, it is no longer freezing. But if you run up against any freezing issues, leave me a comment down below so I do know about them. If we change the core to the other core and try the exact same thing, again, I was not able to make this core freeze whatsoever on display modes. And this is the only core I actually saw any freezing on back on 2.0. So it seems like Analogue has identified this issue and 100% fixed it. So now, unless you get something different than I did as a result, you should be 100% ready to turn on whatever display mode you want across whatever core you want and get an absolutely great experience. Definitely the freezing was an issue, and I'm so glad to see that Analogue patched that up. I tried everything I could to trick it and I could not get it to freeze. But that's so much fun to have that improvement. It definitely was warranted. Now moving over onto the arcade side with some CPS2 stuff, let's play around with the Sony CRT Trinitron, and there is going to be a new option for that CRT width, but honestly, I'm not really seeing much change whatsoever. You'll see stretch CRT width right here, but as I played around with it in the actual core, I didn't see any difference in the aspect ratio whatsoever. So I'm not sure if this is core specific. I checked around with some other people I know, and they were seeing the exact same thing. So it's possible this may be something that needs to be updated on the core maker side to actually take advantage of it, because I played around and I really didn't see much of a change on anything. But if you've seen any examples of this actually changing something, do let me know. But again, CPS2 was something that I did have some freezing issues with, way more sporadically than Sega Genesis, when I would actually open up the display menu, and I can say that again is 100% fixed as of operating system 2.1. And that really is the big takeaway from this video: stability. It was absolutely frustrating to try to open up display modes while you're playing a game and end up completely hanging the Analogue Pocket and having to hold the power button down until it would automatically power off. It was a big interruption, and I'm so glad to see that's fixed. And you'll see here on Integer Plus on Capcom CPS2, you do still lose a little bit of the display, but that's just kind of inherent in how this all works. But there's so many new great scan line features, so many new filter features, so many different things you can turn on. It has been absolutely awesome since Christmas Eve to get all these operating system updates on the Analogue Pocket and Dock side, and I do hope to see more come much faster than they were back in 2023, and I really do hope that the next thing we see is DAC support. But tell me down below what the one feature you want to see in the new Analogue OS update is concerned. I'd be curious to know what you guys want to have as well. But that's the current situation on Analogue Pocket. The firmware has been upgraded to 2.1, and it brings a lot of fixes and new modes to the party. But again, not having the Pocket crash on the actual operating system side for the screen filters is number one of the biggest thing to me. I hated it when I couldn't get a button response out of the Pocket or controller when it was docked, and now that's 100% fixed. So follow the guide, update your firmware, and go start having fun. But short of that, I'll have another Pocket video next week. We are done. Bye bye.